Well, since my first PS1 review was of the first PS1 game I ever played, it only makes sense that my first PS2 review be of the first PS2 game I ever played. And to be honest, this was the point where I truly became a gamer. Yeah, I had a PS1, and I liked it. I had a lot of fun with it, but back then, gaming was still just a daft little pastime for me, and not the full-fledged obsession it would be for many years to come. But then my lucky fuck little cousin got himself a PS2, and let me tell you, I was entranced. Just the sheer leap from what the PS1 could do to this left me completely blown away, and that was the point where I truly fell in love with gaming. And yeah, you can probably guess what happened next.
Mum, buy me that now! Mum, I need it now! I'm gonna die without it! Don't you love me? What do you mean you can't afford it? Just go to the bank! I need it now!
Yeah, that went on for a good few months, and it wouldn't be until Christmas that I finally got a PS2 of my own, and my dear old mother, God bless her soul, finally got some peace. Until my cousin got himself an Xbox, but that's a story for another video. But anyway, one of the games what did it for me just happens to be the first outing on the console for our favourite suave and sexy British secret agent, 007 Agent Under Fire. Now if you've been a viewer of the channel for some time, you'll know that I already looked at the two main Bond games on PS1, Tomorrow Never Dies and The World's Not Enough. And while I loved those games as a kid, nowadays, well, let's just say they haven't aged all that gracefully.
Why the fuck can't I get my fucking gun out, you fucking piece of shit? Fuck you!
They're not terrible by any means, but they are clunky and annoying, and to be honest, just not as fun to play as I remember. But what about old Jimmy's first adventure on PS2? Well, that's what we're all here to find out, isn't it? So without any further delay, let's pour ourselves a vodka martini and get right into it. So James Bond 007 Agent Under Fire was developed and published by Electronic Arts in 2001, specifically by EA Redwood Shores. Yeah, the same guys what did Future Cop LAPD. Oh yeah, now you know it's gonna be good. It was on PS2, Xbox and GameCube, but as usual I only played the PS2 version, so that's what I'm talking about. Fun fact, this actually started life as a PS2 and PC version of The World's Not Enough. Yeah, another one, in addition to the versions on PS1 and N64, before they decided to make it its own thing with a storyline unrelated to any of the films. So we start a new game, enter our name, and oh my god, are we gonna make it? Yes! Look at that! 9 letters, baby! 9 fucking letters! We made it! Now there's the real innovation right there! Only took us until fucking PS2, but hey, better late than never, right? Anyway, onto the first mission. We're in Hong Kong and have to rescue some CIA agent called Zoe Nightshade who's gone and got herself caught by some bad guys. And what the fuck kind of name is fucking Zoe Nightshade? Sounds like a bad porn name. Who came up with that shit? Wait, what? Oh, the films had names like Holly Goodhead and Plenty O'Toole and Pussy Galore. Yeah, never mind. So we get started and oh for fuck's sake man, we've got that stupid ass controller setup what we had in Men in Black. Remember where one stick controls half the movement and half the camera while the other controls the other halves? Why is this still a thing? I mean I get why they were like this on PS1 cause all those games were designed with the original controller in mind which didn't have DualShock. But this is PS2, all the controllers are fucking DualShock. So why the fuck do we still have this backwards ass shit? I don't get it. But luckily, just like on PS1, you can go into the options menu and change the control scheme back to the proper setup, so that just makes it all the more perplexing. I don't know, I guess maybe they figured that most players will be coming from PS1 and so be used to the old setup, but like I say, I don't know, that's just a guess on my part. But anyway, with that annoying shit dealt with, we've now got to get inside the base, and we actually get a couple choices for how we do it. We can either use our fancy Q phone to go in the front door, which pretty much gets you spotted straight away, or you can use your grappling hook to get up on the roof and get in that way. Although it doesn't really matter which way you choose, either way the bullets are gonna start flying soon enough. Just one way means it takes a little longer to get into the action. But yeah, this ain't Splinter Cell, so obviously it's not long before all hell breaks loose, which brings us onto the combat, which to be honest, isn't all that different from what we saw in The World's Not Enough. It functions pretty much the same. You aim freely, but there's also an auto-targeting feature that makes your reticle snap to the nearest enemy if you get close enough. And then you've also got a precision aim mode, so you can aim more accurately. But unlike in The World's Not Enough, you can't use it to lean out of cover, which is a little disappointing. So you fight through a bunch of guys and make it to the submarine bay where we get our first look at both our captured agent, who seems to be in a bit of a pickle, and this friendly looking fellow who I guess is meant to be our villain. Looks like a discount Cenobite from fucking Hellraiser to me. So yeah, now we've got to rescue Miss Nightshade before she becomes some tasty shark food. And while the combat does function very similar to the PS1 games, it's also way better. Mostly just cause the controls are way better. Yeah, by now, they were finally getting the hang of the whole, you know, controlling the main character thing. And yeah, the controls here are just way smoother and more fluid and responsive, making both the movement and combat way more enjoyable. It's not perfect, it is a bit fast and light, so it can be difficult making small and precise movements, but it's still a damn sight better than what we've been used to so far. But anyway, you free Miss Nightshade and that's the mission done. You shoot your way out. Hey, it's Tom Sizemore! Little Miss CIA's like, oh, how can I ever repay you? And Bond being Bond's just like a warm glass of milk and a blowjob will do me, honey. And there you go. And as usual, we get graded on our performance, but unlike in the previous games, this time if you do well enough, you actually get some rewards. For example, here, if you get the gold medal, you unlock the golden gun. Ooh. But on to the next mission, and we're not out of the woods yet, because the bad guys aren't too happy that we just shot up their base and nicked off with the prized figurehead for their submarine. So now we've got ourselves an on-rail segment. Little Miss Central Intelligence is in the driver's seat, and you've just got to blast every fucker who gets near. And already I'm impressed by just how far beyond anything on PS1 this all is. When I said I was blown away as a kid, this was what I was talking about. I'd never seen anything like this before. You've just got so much going on screen all at once. You've got all the enemy and civilian vehicles, all the bullet and explosion effects, the graphics are good, at least for the time. And again, it's all so smooth and, not clunky. I just never imagined anything like this was possible back then, especially only a year after The World's Not Enough on PS1. But anyway, this bit's simple enough. The only difficulty comes from the fact that even with the auto-targeting, it's still a bit fiddly trying to hit enemies with the way they move around all over the place. But it's not too bad considering they're just as bad shots as you. And you'll also notice at various points you'll get these Bond moment things, what I guess are just like cool little actions that the man himself would do if this was one of the films. So mostly just want-on acts of destruction. But yeah, they act as kind of a collectible and contribute to your score at the end of the mission. And once we get done with that, we'll meet up with Q or R or whoever the fuck he's supposed to be this time, who shows us our new souped up pussy-mobile. Why they don't just extract us from this hellhole right now, I have no fucking idea. But too late, we got company. And yeah, just stand there while you've got a rocket launcher aimed at you, why don't ya? So you get blown on your arse and the bad guys take back the briefcase where you also nicked off them. They could have just finished us off right there, but for some reason just chose not to. Hint, it's called bad writing. But turns out Miss CIA wasn't so lucky. No! My coups! I was gonna bang that! Great, now I've just got to make do with my right hand. You'll pay for that, motherfuckers! So now we've got to get the briefcase back, and we also get our first driving mission. Wow, they're really wasting no time showing off all the different mission types. But yeah, now we're on the trail of the briefcase and blasting all the fuckers in our way. Yeah, I'll teach you to ruin my night of awkward rough snoo, you wankers. Again, this is pretty similar to the driving sections in the previous games, like Tomorrow Never Dies, and that's about it, I think. You've got a bunch of weapons. You've got your machine guns and rockets and shit, and you've just got to follow the blip on the minimap. What's the truck carrying the briefcase? And when you get close, you fire your EMP pulse thing to bring it to a stop, and that's the mission done. The only thing you need to watch out for is when you find the truck, you need to stay close to it, since it doesn't need to get that far ahead for you to lose it, even though it's got a tracker on it. The same tracker what you used to find it in the first place, which is still working. So how the fuck can you lose the fucking thing if you've got a fucking tracker on it? Oh, whatever. So yeah, that was fun and all, but it's a bit anticlimactic when you can do the thing in literally less than a minute. On to the next mission. We're in Romania now, where we've got to infiltrate the British Embassy to find out about the human blood samples, what were in the case. Yeah, we've got ourselves a stealth mission. Great, cause we all remember just how much fun those were in the previous games. Yeah, I've said a couple times, PS1 just didn't do first-person stealth very well. The controls were just too awkward and clunky, and the AI wasn't up to the task for making a challenging but enjoyable stealth mission. But what about on PS2? Well, it's easier, I'll give it that, so I guess that makes it a bit better. There's not much to it. I mean, again, this ain't fucking Splinter Cell or anything. You've got your dark gun, you creep up behind the guards and then shoot them in the back, and then they disappear, so you don't have to worry about them waking up or anybody finding them. So yeah, nowhere near as frustrating as The World's Not Enough. So you just work your way up to the top floor until... oh. My nookie senses are tingling.
Giggity. Giggity. Giggity, giggity, giggity.
Well, I see they put a lot of effort into the bouncing booby physics. Look at those puppies. It's like they've got a life of their own. Man, talk about innovation. Now we're really tasting the power of PS2. Jesus, I think I might need a cold shower after that. Fuck me. All I've got to say is thank God we used to just skip through all the cutscenes as kids. I mean, just imagine if our mothers saw us playing this at like 8 or 9 years old. Jesus. And yeah, of course it's a Bond moment. Although to be honest, I'd probably be more shocked if it wasn't. But anyway, after that random bit of early 2000s fan service, we'll find the guy we're looking for. And oh dear, this isn't looking good.
I found Griffin. He's been tortured to death. Looks like an interrogation gone bad.
Oh really? You can tell that just by looking at him, can ya? But psych! What the fuck?
Your eyes don't deceive you. Unfortunately, I am the last thing they will ever see.
So yeah, now you've got to take out the dastardly doppelganger here, but...
oh my god, he's gone. Where is he?
But yeah, once you do, he just disappears like the guards. Like what the fuck is he? One of those shape-shifted aliens from the X-Files whose bodies dissolve when you kill them? But with that out the way, you use the password generator thing to hack the computer and then you escape and it's on to the next mission.
Shocking news, 007. We've conducted tests on the man who attacked you in the embassy.
How? He fucking disappeared.
He was more than just an imposter. He was an exact genetic duplicate of Griffin. In short, a clone.
But anyway, the information leads to a bioengineering company what are apparently working on human cloning. Oh, you don't say. And now we've got to go undercover. To find out why, I guess.
I'm afraid your interview with Ms. Malprave has been delayed. In the meantime, you can enjoy the view.
I already am.
My god, can this guy stay focused on the mission for 5 fucking minutes? I mean, we're meant to be finding out what the fuck's going on around here, but then we come across these two weird, I guess, clone chicks, and his first thought is, menage a trois. But then, I'd recognise those bazookas anywhere. So yeah, turns out random booby lady from the embassy is actually the boss of the cloning company or whatever. So I guess that makes her the villain, I suppose? I don't know. But anyway, this was the point where the game started to get a bit difficult. So you've got to creep around this place to find the evidence you need, but first you've got to get out of this room. There's a bunch of doors with buttons to open them, but you've got to make sure to open the right door, because if you open the wrong one, you set off the alarm and end up facing endless waves of enemies, who will eventually overwhelm and slaughter you. So yeah, make sure to open the correct door, namely the one on the left, then you can just sneak through the ducts, picking off enemies and gathering evidence with your gadgets as you go. And on the topic of the gadgets, while it is cool that they play such an important role in the gameplay, they're also probably the most annoying part of the game. First of all, it can be irritating just switching between your weapons and your gadgets. Basically, you cycle through your weapons with the up and down buttons and use left and right for the gadgets, but it can be annoying when you're in the middle of a fight or something and trying to find the gadget you want and end up pressing the wrong button and switching back to your weapons instead. And I also found it a bit strange that you use up and down to cycle through your weapons and left and right to switch between gadgets. Like, I don't know if it's just me, but it always just seemed more natural to use the left and right buttons for switching through things. And since you use your weapons more, it would make more sense to use left and right for them and up and down for the gadgets. And then you have the sheer number of gadgets as well. You don't have many to start with, but as you get further into the game, you end up with like 4 or 5 per mission. And again, it can be annoying just switching through them all to find the one you want. And it doesn't take long, but it's still irritating when you're in the heat of battle and you're constantly having to stop and switch through shit. And most of these are in your phone as well. Like, how big is this phone? Is it just like the fucking TARDIS inside? Or is he just carrying like 5 different phones around with him at any one time? Because that doesn't look weird at all. I mean, why couldn't they just make them all be one phone? Like, when you aim at a lock, it uses the laser, and when you aim at one of these grappling bits, it uses the grappling hook, rather than make you have to constantly switch between them. Hell, at one point you have the fucking Q decryptor and the Q remote, and they're literally the same fucking thing, except one opens locked doors and you use the other one for messing around with other computer panels. And it's like, why do I need 2? Why can't I just have one that does both? And finally, it can be confusing because you use one button, R1, to use your weapons, but you use circle to use your gadgets. If you press R1 when you've got a gadget out, it switches back to your weapon. And again, when you're in the middle of a fight and trying to move quickly, it's easy to get confused and press the wrong button, so then you end up getting your fucking weapon back out when you want to use your gadget. Like, why couldn't they just make it the same button to use both? I don't get it. But anyway, you find the data you need and then fight your way out, and there you go. Next mission, we're back at the embassy in Romania where we've got to rescue a doctor who I guess is a whistleblower or whatever who's got information about the cloning company and take out the leader of the mercenaries, Carla the Jackal. Wow, on the nose enough for you? Who you'll likely remember is the one what robbed us of our punani earlier, so you can bet she's getting a hand grenade shoved up her coin slot. So anyway, you've got to fight your way through the mercenaries attacking the embassy to get to the doctor, but you can't just walk in the front door for some reason. Nah, instead you've got to head round the corner to Q's pleasure part, and whoa, apparently I was closer to the mark than I thought with that one. But nah, turns out it's just Q trolling us. I'm just glad he's got some clothes on. I mean, if he really wanted to fuck with us, he would have just been standing there with his wrinkly old wedding tackle hanging out. But anyway, he gives us a magic key card what can get you through all the doors in the embassy, and then you've just got to make your way through, taking out bad guys and rescuing hostages until you find the doctor.
The name is Bond. James Bond.
Jesus Christ, this guy really is just like the biggest fucking pussy hound this side of Night City. He literally just makes this woman in mortal danger, and instead of being like, it's okay, I'm here to help, he's like,
hey baby.
And then after you've found the doctor, you've got to fight this Carla the Jackal broad. So yeah, we've got ourselves a boss fight, I guess. Not that there's much to it, you just spray her with all the ammo you've got until she bites the dust. Yeah, not all that satisfying, is it? Although, there is a more, shall we say, entertaining way to do the bitching. See, as you fill her more and more with lead, she gradually moves further along this gantry until she's standing in front of this crane thing, which if you then activate, knocks her off right into this great big spinning fan. Oh dear. Yeah, I'd say that's a more fitting punishment for ruining our night of passion. Rest in pieces, you cock-blocking whore.
Bond, did you encounter the Jackal? What happened?
She's fallen for me.
But it's not over, because then we've got to take out this big-ass gunship. Again, it's not hard, you've just got to keep blasting the thing with everything you've got, including the mounted machine gun turrets that every embassy just has on its roof for some reason. Although actually, I don't know if it's that far-fetched, to be honest. I mean, after all, we're not that far from Russia, so yeah. But anyway, once the chopper goes down, that's the mission done. But we're still not out the woods, cause the USB or whatever what has the location of the cloning lab has been dropped from the helicopter somewhere in the city, and we've got to get to it before the bad guys do. So it's time for another driving mission. First we've got to get the Q locator thing what'll help us find the USB, and then we've got to get it before the baddies. So to be honest, I was actually kind of surprised by just how good the driving controls were. I mean, I guess since it only features in a couple missions, you could be forgiven for expecting them not to put as much effort into the driving as the rest of the game, but no, they did a good job with it. It's nice and fast, but the controls also have a good amount of weight to them without being overly heavy or clunky, so you can actually go speeding through the city without crashing into things every other second. Well, mostly. The only annoying thing is that you and the enemies are moving so fast that it can be a little fiddly trying to hit them with your weapons, but it's not that huge an issue. So you get the data thingy, fast and furious your way through a bunch of guys and then jump the river, and that's the end, right? I mean, the car's fucked. But that's no bother, because apparently in Romania they just keep tanks lying around in random warehouses for any fucker to take off in. Although again, not far from Russia, so yeah. So yeah, for the second half of the mission, you're now going around in a big ass tank blowing shit up. Also now they're just lifting shit from GoldenEye 007. Well, at least this controls better than anything in that piece of shit. Oh yes, I said that. Yeah, we'll get to that at some point. But nah, this isn't like that, since you're not actually steering the tank. Yeah, it's just another on-rail section. The tank drives itself and you just have to blast all the enemies in your path with either the chain gun or the main cannon. So yeah, not much more to say, although there is one funny bit where you randomly get your hands on some night vision goggles for part of the mission, just, because. I mean, yeah, it's so dark, I can barely see a thing. And after all that shit, you finally meet up with Q and his new assistant, Zed. And oh my god, this guy would stick his dick in a fucking electrical outlet if it so much as winked at him. Anyway, on to the next mission, where we've got to investigate an oil rig what's meant to be the location of a super secret cloning lab, and I understand now why M doesn't give us our objectives in person. Cause if she did, Bond probably wouldn't remember half the shit she said, what with them spending the entire brief and ogling her dried up old milk jugs. So now you're just going around this oil rig, fucking shit up. You can try being stealthy if you want, but it's only a matter of time before you're spotted and all hell breaks loose again. And it's pretty much the same as everything we've already seen. Although this mission does bring me onto an aspect of the game that I appreciate, and that's the level design. See, even though they're all pretty linear, the missions are quite detailed, and some even offer alternate paths like what we saw in the first mission. And this is another example, especially with the addition of a new gadget, the jetpack. So yeah, a lot of the levels are pretty expansive with extra areas and routes to discover, although in the end, none of it really matters since it all just leads to the same destination. It would have been nice if they could have made it so that the choices you make actually have an impact on the outcome of the mission, and even accommodate different playstyles, like actually make stealth a viable option other than when the game just wants you to be stealthy. But the other reason why this mission's notable is because, while up to this point, despite the ludicrous plot, I could take the game a little seriously, but this is where things start to get a bit ridiculous. Say you run into this Nigel guy again and end up chasing him across the oil rig, and this fucking guy's over the top as all hell. I mean, I know the Bond films, particularly before Daniel Craig, weren't meant to be too serious. I mean, fuck, just look at some of the later Roger Moore ones. And they have had their fair share of wacky villains, but this guy makes fucking Max Zorin look like Anton Chigurh in terms of subtlety and menace. He's over here screaming threats and cackling more than the fucking Joker, and it just makes it impossible to take any of this seriously, which you better get used to, because once you get to the end of this shit, you take a tumble off the top of the rig and then end up in fucking Rapture. So yeah, we've got another on rails level, quite literally, since we're on this monorail thing and chasing old Nigel Blockhead through the depths of Atlantis, wiping out all the shit now away. And yeah, not much more to say. Other than, Jesus, how big is this fucking place? I mean, how much space do you need for a cloning lab? It's not like you're building the fucking clone army down here. Are you? I mean, that would be pretty cool. Man, just imagine if the main villain turned out to be Darth Sidious. Now that would be a twist.
Do you expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to turn to the dark side. But anyway, after all that, you end up in Jesus. Now it looks like something out of Doc Ock's lair from Spider-Man, where old Nigel opens up the fucking Earth's crust apparently, and you've got to take him out before you get cooked. It's not hard. You've got this rocket launcher thing, and you've just got to guide the rockets into these things above the structure, and then it's bye-bye Baldy. And like every iconic over-the-top cartoon villain, he even gives us a good old no before going to meet his maker. And with that done with, it's on to the next mission. We're now in the actual lab and have to put a stop to all this cloning nonsense. And it's all just the same. You just go around and shoot a bunch of guys and use your gadgets to fuck up the machinery. So I guess this is probably the best time to focus on the presentation side. As I said earlier, the graphics are pretty good, at least for the time. Again, just the sheer jump from what the PS1 was capable of to this, especially in terms of visuals, was pretty mind-blown back then. The environments look really good, they're well detailed and expansive, and the lighting is atmospheric, especially in more darkly lit areas. The character models are great as well. Again, they're well detailed, they've got personality, they're dynamic, and once again the difference between these and those on PS1 is night and day. I mean, at least they can actually move their lips now, among other things. The soundtrack's decent. It's a good mix of orchestral and electronic and rock-based tracks that do well to complement the action, and there's a few quiet atmospheric pieces for when you're just sneaking around, and they also incorporate the classic Bond theme as well. The voice acting's pretty good too, surprisingly so. I mean, after all, this was still well before the likes of The Last of Us and Red Dead 2 and God of War, each of which with acting performances that could seriously give film and television a run for their money. And while it's nowhere near as good as those, at least pretty much everybody does a good job, especially those portraying characters from the films. Some of the line delivery's a little ropey, but that's more to do with the hokey writing than anything else. To be honest, out of all of them, I'd say the only one who I didn't think was very good was Bond himself. Yeah, the guy's fine when he's just talking normally, but when he's flirting with just about every single female he comes across or giving his classic one-liners, he doesn't really sound charismatic and instead just comes across as pretty cringy for the most part. Oh, and some of the combat dialogue from the generic bad guys is kind of funny as well. Yeah, it's one of those where the enemies just kind of chatter at each other despite none of their dialogue actually matching up with what's going on around them. For instance, they'll shout things like covering fire, but nobody's actually giving covering fire. Or they'll say you're surrounded, even when you're not surrounded. And half the time you can't even understand them. Like they keep making this sound. Like what the fuck is that? Get him? Hurt him? Take him? Bake him? What are you saying? And I might not have brought it up if they didn't say it so fucking much, but no, you hear it in virtually every firefight. So anyway, you shoot up the lab, destroy all the cloning stuff, and then escape on a submarine, where we run into a familiar face. So yeah, little Miss CIA is still alive, because apparently the one we saved in the first mission and got blown up was actually a clone meant to infiltrate the agency and wasn't meant to die, but this is the real one, and Bond's just like, okay, whatever, I've got a hard on. I mean, how do you know she's telling the truth? How do you know this one isn't a clone as well, idiot?
One thing troubles me. How can I be sure you're the genuine article?
I intend to prove it to you.
Oh, that clears it up, I guess. But anyway, that's the level done, although this mission does in fact have multiple endings depending on your actions. See, as you're making your way through the lab, if you explore the environment extensively, you'll come across this verification code. Now if you don't find the code and then get on the submarine, you and Miss Nightshade will be knocked out with gas and captured. But if you do find the code, then you don't get gassed and instead finally get to bone down with Miss CIA. Cause yeah, a nuclear submarine after slaughtering a bunch of guys is the perfect place for a bout of awkward and passionate copulation. Man, that metal floor must be so comfortable. Then it's on to the next mission, and we're now on a naval ship what's been hijacked by the bad guys and also just happens to be the location of a summit for the leaders of the world, and how you ended the previous level affects how you start this one. See, if you give Miss CIA a taste of your hot British beef, then you start off outside the ship and just make your way through, taking out bad guys. But if you got captured, then you wake up in the brig and have to find a way to get free. Just like that bullshitting GoldenEye 007. Oh, we'll get to that! But anyway, escaping's easy enough, since even though they took your weapons off you, they apparently didn't see fit to relieve you of your gadgets as well, including your super powerful laser phone, what can melt through solid fucking steel, but not human flesh for some reason. Yeah, these dumb fucks deserve everything they get. But anyway, once you're free, it's back to the same shit as before. You can go all guns blazing, or you can sneak around in the ducts to be stealthy, but it won't be long until you're spotted. So yeah, outside of the on rails and driving missions, the gameplay is pretty repetitive. Kind of like in the PS1 games, you're mostly just going around putting holes in bad guys and completing objectives. So at its heart, it is mostly just a bog standard first person shooter with just the 007 name to set it apart. The on-foot missions don't have much in the way of individual set pieces, so the gameplay, while it is fun enough, does get a bit samey, especially later into the game. Yeah, there's some unique Bond moments here and there, but they don't make much difference to the gameplay. It would have been nice if the standard missions had some individual set pieces to set them apart from each other and keep the gameplay feeling fresh. But anyway, M contacts you to let you know that a nuclear missile's been armed, so you've got to make your way to the bridge and oh my god, just look at this. Yeah, this lecturer's fuck's probably thinking he's hit the fucking jackpot. What, do you get a Bond moment if you look up his skirt? Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised.
Under different circumstances, I'd think twice about this.
Yeah, how did I know you were gonna say something like that? So yeah, you disarm the warhead, rescue Miss Nightshade again, shoot down another helicopter, and that's the mission done, and it's on to the final showdown. We're back at the cloning company where the world leaders are being held as part of evil booby lady's plan for world domination. Basically, she's going to replace them with identical clones who I guess will do her bidding, essentially allowing her to rule the world. And you thought the giant space solar death ray, the invisible car, and the gene therapy that can turn a Korean man into a British bloke, complete with accent, was ridiculous. I mean, this is the kind of plot Dr. Rex would come up with when he's not building his answer to fucking Truckosaurus. Seriously, what was that? Yeah, it's all just a bit silly, but since it's a game, it gets a pass, I suppose. So anyway, you've just got to get inside the base, take out the guys who are holding the first load of world leaders, and then you've got to save the rest who are inside these missile silos for some reason. Like what, are they going to strap them to the rockets like Sid from Toy Story? So yeah, we've got France, merci, Monsieur Bond. Germany, danke Herr Bond. The UK, I say, good show old boy. And finally, the good old US of A. Why hell son, I could have took those sons of bitches out myself if you gave me another minute. And once you've saved all the senile old fucks, you just head on back over to the main area where we encounter puppies! And yeah, of course this daft fucker's still alive. Yeah, turns out the one we killed was actually just a clone. Wow, who'd have thought? So now it's time for the final fight, and in all honesty, after all the explosive and pulse-pounding action we've been through, it's kind of underwhelming. You literally just chase the fucker around, shooting him in the back like it's fucking COD Deathmatch or some shit, then he flies off with his jetpack, and every time he lands, you put a few more shots in him until he takes off again, and finally disappears through this vent or whatever, and this was where it got tricky. So you follow him through the vent, which brings you out in this area from before. And if you're like me, you'll probably think this must be the final stage, where the guy's actually gonna start fucking trying. And being the gamer I am, and having played so many FPSs over the years, as soon as I get back control, I start moving to cover, you know, to avoid getting a fucking rocket in the face. But then I just died instantly. Yeah, no fucking clue how. So I try again, and the same thing happens, and I'm just like, what the fuck? What am I doing wrong? Well, turns out, playing the game the same fucking way I have been all the way up to this point. So turns out, what you have to do is, rather than running for cover or anything, because that just makes the fucking floor explode, instead you've just got to stand still, and then you'll all of a sudden get a rocket launcher out of nowhere, and then you've just got to blast the guy before he blasts you. And there you go. That's it. He takes one last flight out the window, and then the place starts to go boom, and Bond's like, yeah, I'd rather be splattered than cooked, and jumps out after him. But thank God, because turns out little Miss CIA just happened to be waiting there with the jet, because she just somehow knew we were going to throw ourselves out of this specific window. And if you look right here, you see someone else running towards the window. I mean, I'm guessing it's meant to be evil booby lady, but it happens so quick you can barely tell. And yeah, that's the end of her, I guess. Wow, she was such a memorable villain, up there with, I don't know, the guy from Quantum of Solace. What was his plan again? Something to do with water or some shit? And yeah, that's it. That's the end. There's not even any end credits or anything. It literally just stops. No congratulations from M, no romantic epilogue with Miss Nightshade. I mean, I'm guessing they probably parked the jet on the side of a mountain for a quickie in the cockpit. Now there's two words that go hand in hand. Quickie in the cockpit. But they don't even give us that. Yeah, great ending. So that was James Bond Agent Under Fire on PS2, and in conclusion, well, at least it's better than GoldenEye 007. Oh, we'll get to that! But in all seriousness, it is a decent game that does a good job of showing what the newfangled PS2 was capable of. It looks good, it controls well, it's packed full of action. Outside of the vehicle missions, it is a bit samey and repetitive, to the point of being not much more than a standard early 2000s FPS, with just the James Bond property to set it apart from all the rest, but it's entertaining enough to look past that. The story's a bit daft, what with it pretty much going full sci-fi, and the villains are just cardboard cutouts with virtually no personality or backstory. Although once again, since it's a game, it gets a pass. So yeah, Bond's first adventure on PS2 is definitely a step above his outings on PS1, and if you haven't played it, I recommend you give it a go. It's not very long, you'll probably get through it in a couple hours, and there isn't a whole lot of replayability. But yeah, if you've got a couple hours to kill, there's worse ways to do it. Like playing GoldenEye 007, what? Well, there you go, my first PS2 review. I hope you enjoyed it as much as my PS1 reviews. And again, don't worry, we will be returning to the little grey box very soon. But yeah, thank you for watching the video, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, then leave a like. If you didn't, then tell me to go fuck myself. We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and we're making good progress. In fact, we just recently passed the 600 mark. So if you enjoy my content and have yet to subscribe, I will be extremely grateful if you would do so. And as always, thank you very much to everyone who already has. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.